Rwandan President Paul Kagame has said he is not surprised by the recent wave of coups in West Africa, saying such revolts are as a result of an accumulation of grievances over several years. Do these events just happen without an explanation? Kagame posed during a September 12th interview with Pan-African French weekly news magazine Jeune Afrique. He said, and I quote, "I think they are often the result of an accumulation of grievances over several years. We can add and analyze them to find that these reasons are either valid or not, but there are inevitably factors that lead to this extreme action. I'm not surprised," he said, unquote. The Rwandan leader said many African heads of state and government do not realize that what is happening until it is too late, when it has reached a point of no return. Every change or implosion in these countries can be summed up in one word: governance, and then security. This is what lays the foundations for a country's development, provided they are managed in the right way, President Kagame said. The president said condemnation of coups by regional bodies such as the African Union does not solve the problem. It is one thing to condemn coups, but Africa and the African Union must not ignore the factors that lead to them, he said, explaining that most coups are triggered by poor leadership. Kagame said he does not mind visiting countries led by transitional presidents who ascended to power through coups, because countries don't boil down to their presidents. Maisha TV.
Taking place. People should be asking themselves, are these coups just happening, or they're happening for a reason? And that is something that maybe has been ignored in the past for many years and hasn't been addressed. And that is really, what do you do for the development of these societies in these countries? And people have come to take it for granted that Africa is poor and therefore it must remain as such, which is not true, because Africa is actually very rich, both in terms of natural resources, human capital, you can name it. I don't think there is any geographical space in this world that is so endowed with such things to build on as Africa. But in the end, it comes down to governance. How is Africa governed? How do countries govern themselves? And how, if they are doing that, are putting their people at the center of everything that is being done. So in the end, when you see a coup happening and ordinary people move onto the street and are happy, jubilating because of that, it tells you something. It's not just a coup that people should look at and say, well, this is the beginning, this is the end. There is that story behind. But there is another question that must be raised. All of these, for example, developed countries who are heavily present in every country on our continent, doing all kinds of things, teaching people democracy, human rights, freedoms. Then in the end, exploiting natural resources of the continent, making a lot of money, whether it is through companies or whatever is taking place. Sometimes countries, are playing their part directly in this exploitation of these natural resources that should have brought wealth to our countries. So one would ask, so why are you there for 50 years and you are doing all kinds of things, business, all kinds of transactions? For you, you get better for it, but the people of countries where you are doing it remain impoverished, if not even getting worse. So this is a question that...
Is that to the French? Is that to the Belgians? Is that to the Americans? Is it the Chinese?
All of them, absolutely. Why? Why would you be doing so things worth billions, tens of billions of dollars?
Do you think there's a kind of neocolonialism going on now in Africa?
I think there is just total confusion from the beginning. I think colonialism never ended, really. It just changed forms, but I can't also blame others just for it. I think we need to take responsibility ourselves as Africans. Why do we accept such a things to happen? Why do we have almost everything, and that works to benefit others more than we benefit from them? There are different ways of correcting that. Why don't we do that? So, I mean, sometimes you may complain or you may blame the exploiter, but even the exploited should be blamed. Because
I mean, you've been saying that message for a long time. You were chair of the African Union, and you were talking about picking ourselves, meaning African nations, up by our bootstraps, not being dependent, best in promising practices.
Yeah.
But when you look at the African Union and you look at its inability to stop some of these coups and to kind of look at this broad challenge of the ongoing relationship with the West and China that's just complicated, why is the African Union not more effective?
Well, the African Union is not more effective simply because the countries that make up this African Union, ourselves, we have a problem. African Union becomes a reflection of the country's problems as we see every day in each country.
Are other new organizations like ECOWAS making the AU less relevant?
Not really, because ECOWAS was supposed to be, is a regional economic entity. So it really doesn't make it irrelevant. It only maybe reflects the problems that go across the continent. Therefore,
goes for Bahrain and Jordan as well.
Great. Thank you so much, Mr. Chairman. I yield back.
Chair, now recognize the gentleman from Florida, Mr. Gates, for 5 minutes.
General Langley, I have constituents that have been scattered across Africa on train and equip missions. So just ballpark, in the last decade, how many Africans has the United States military trained and equipped?
Congressman, I don't have that figure. I can get that figure for you.
Ballpark, just, how many?
Congressman, it would be a wild guess, right?
Seems like something we should know, right?
Over the years, we have trained a substantial number, especially in the Gulf of Guinea states, including
like more than 10,000?
It is more than 10,000.
More than 50,000?
I'd say we're reaching around 50,000 at least.
And what percentage of the people we've trained end up participating in insurrections or coups against their own government?
Very small number, Congressman, very small number.
So what percentage do you think?
I'd say probably less than 1%.
But it does happen.
The IMEC program is in force, and we've pushed a significant number through our schools across the
and what data sets do you track to arrive at the conclusion that less than 1% of the roughly 50,000 that we've trained have participated in coups? Because it'd be like about 500, about 1% of 50,000.
Congressman, you may have that information. I don't at this time, but I know.
Well, I know there are some, right? Like go ahead and throw up that image. This is Colonel Mamadi Doumbouya. And this is a photo of him. Did we train and equip him? In Guinea?
By name, I cannot identify that.
Well, that guy in the middle with the big red hat, Colonel Mamadi Doumbouya, that's him with a bunch of U.S. service members outside of our embassy. And just months after this photo was taken in 2021, he led a coup in Guinea and threw out the leader. Does that concern you?
Congressman, core values is what we start off with in IMA programs.
Do we share core values with Colonel Doumbouya?
Core values. I will repeat that. core values, respect for humanity.
Do we share those values with Colonel?
Absolutely, in our curriculum.
He led a coup.
We do.
Okay, well, that's a very telling answer. In Burkina Faso, did we share core values with the leader that we trained there who led a coup?
It's in our curriculum. We stress core values. We request civilian-led governance.
Wait, hold on. Is leading coups in our curriculum?
Absolutely not.
So
civilian-led.
My question is, do we share core values with the coup leader in Burkina Faso, who we trained?
Holistically, we teach core values with a respect for civilian governance, apolitical, and that's what sticks across a very high percentage in the 99 percentile.
Right? But not everybody. And I wonder how many people it takes to plan a coup. I mean, initially you didn't know how many we trained and equipped. Then you said it was 1%. You had no basis for that 1% number because there's no data set you track. Mr. Chairman, I seek unanimous consent to enter into the record. Another U.S. trained soldier stages a coup in West Africa by The Intercept.
Without objection, so ordered.
And I further seek unanimous consent to enter into the record. U.S. forces trained the Guinean colonel behind the recent coup in West African country, and this is regard to Guinea.
Without objection, so ordered.
So I guess the question is, why should U.S. taxpayers be paying to train people who then lead coups in Africa?
Congressman, our curriculum harvests core values and also to be able to embolden these countries for a representative democracy.
But General, that democracy isn't what emerges. The problem is, I know you may have great confidence in what you're teaching, but when two governments have been overthrown, I guess how many governments have to be overthrown by people we train before you sort of get the message that our core values might not be sticking with everyone? Is it 5 countries? 10?
We'll continue with our persistence in assuring
but do you think it's
that they harbor democratic norms, democratic values.
Just a moment ago,
you
said we shared core values with Colonel Doumbouya. You said that just moments ago in response to my question, and his core value seems to be leading a coup. So I don't think it's stuck. I think we should at least know how many countries we train the coup plotters in. How many is too many? Because clearly 2 is not too many, and I think we could use our resources far more effectively than doing this.
Gentleman's time's expired. Chair, and I recognize the gentleman from New York, Mr. Ryan, for 5 minutes.